what's going on, guys? It's Kevin Zwicker from Fast Count coming at you. And before I get into this video, please remember to like the video and subscribe. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. Plus, it's free. So this is your 2024 Survivor Series post show. We just saw two incredible War Games match, and we saw a couple of things in between. But if we're really going to be honest with each other, this was a two-match show. Going into it, we had a very pivotal, important match with the men's War Games match that ended the show. We are going to get into that later on. We are going to start from the beginning, and we start with the women's War Games match. Now, going into this match, you would think, right, that the team that has the two world champions on it would be the super team, but that's not the case when it comes to this match. We had the big-time guns on Rhea Ripley's side. We had Bianca Belair. We had Bayley. We had Trinity. We had Io Sky, who, in my opinion, her and Nia Jax were the two MVPs of this match. This was a match that was incredibly fun. You can make an argument if you want to that the match itself was funner than the male one because just of what was going down. Of course, the male one had more higher stakes. It was pivotal, especially after Friday where we saw the angle planted and the seeds planted between CM Punk and Roman Reigns where they had the favor thing going on, which we will get into later on in the night. But we start this matchup on the women's side. Of course, Rhea's team had the advantage as they gained that on SmackDown on Friday. And they started this match with Bayley and Nia Jax. These are two individuals that have a history together. We saw Nia Jax be the one to end Bayley's world championship reign. And the match starts off with obviously the big power disadvantage between the two. Nia Jax, ever since she's came back to the WWE, has been night and day when it comes to being a performer. Before, she was known as this person who's very injury prone to people. She's somebody who really didn't have a signature match going back to her first run. But since she's came back, she's been putting in a lot of work. You haven't heard anything about her hurting other individuals in the rings that she's been in. And she was, like I said earlier, the co-MVP of this match. We see Trinity be the next person to enter this match, and she brings in a rainbow kendo stick, shout out to the gays, and a toilet seat, which the toilet seat part was very reminiscent of early 2000s hardcore title matches where you would see anywhere and anywhere where you could have a hardcore match. Very reminiscent of that. There was a funny spot that made me laugh was when she put the toilet seat over Nia Jax's head in the corner, and she paid tribute to her father-in-law Rikishi by delivering her a stink face. I'm sure her stink face was a lot more pleasant than Rikishi's. And then the next person to come in to the match was Candice LeRae. Candice LeRae was one of the only individuals heading into this match that had War Games experience. A lot of individuals in this match didn't have any experience going into it. And you see her and Nia Jax try to make a comeback. And throughout this match, you see various spots where Nia Jax's team is dominant just because of the size advantage that they had between her and Raquel Rodriguez being able to take everybody out just because they're just so much bigger than everybody else. Now, the next person that comes in is Bianca Belair. She's the one who's able to level out the playing field, have the advantage for her team, and she comes in like a ball of fire. Bianca Belair, in my opinion, pound for pound, is the best women's performer in the WWE so far. She's not better than my GOAT, Mercedes Moné. Don't ever get that twisted. But she is pound for pound the best female performer in the WWE to me. And she makes her presence known. She comes in like a ball of fire, taking everybody out up until we see Tiffany Stratton make her appearance. Now, she is the hand of the queen. That's a Game of Thrones reference if you didn't know it. She's the hand of the queen to Nia Jax. She comes in and she's very impressive. We all know that heading into this match, she was the person with the Money in the Bank briefcase. That's always been a wild card anytime you have Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton involved. And that's what makes their pairing so interesting. Because on one hand, you see that they have built this bond. But on the other hand, Tiffany Stratton always has her eye on the goal, which is the Women's World Championship. And I like the dynamic between the two because it's one of those things that's like, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer type deal. We see Io Sky come in. And Io Sky, she reaches under the mat, under the ring, and she brings out this Grimace painted trash can. And that played a big role into the match later on. Mom is digging, so hey, Mom. And that plays a big role in the match later on. She actually goes on top of the cage, and she kind of has the cage like a harness, carrying it like it's a sack of potatoes up into the ring. And that's going to factor in later on in the night because you see this crazy intense spot where Io Sky and Tiffany Stratton, they're kind of going tit for tat in the ring where they're showing off their athletic ability. As you know, Tiffany Stratton has a gymnastics background. So you see these two showing off their moves, and you see after Io sits and does this type of gymnastic maneuver, Tiffany does one back and says, I can do it too. We all give praise to Io for her athletic ability, deservingly so, but Tiffany Stratton is also an athletic freak, and she showed us that. There we see after Io Sky come in, you see Raquel Rodriguez come in, and she cleans house. She is also the heir apparent to Liv Morgan. She is the hand. She is what you would say consigliere to Liv Morgan, and she's handling her business in there. Her and Nia Jax are these two-woman wrecking crew, kicking ass, taking names. At this point, you see the advantage being for Nia Jax's team, and then we see Rhea Ripley make her appearance. And Rhea Ripley, before the match even started, she kind of had like this badass, like I don't know what you would call it, kind of like a ram skull hybrid type of mask, because as we all know, she had the broken nose and was using it as protection. Very LeBron-esque with the black mask. And she comes in, and of course, this whole match was really centered around Liv and Rhea. They have been the hottest women's feud in the WWE all year, centered around Dominic Mysterio, which surprisingly, he didn't make his presence felt at all, which was kind of weird because I saw in his story on Instagram that he was in Canada, but I guess he was just doing meet and greets and stuff. And then it's finally time for Liv Morgan to make her entrance, but at this time, everybody, all bodies are laid out. Rhea Ripley is the only one standing, so Liv Morgan is very hesitant to go in. We see her make a beeline to the back, and she comes out with the back and brings out a baseball bat, similar to how she broke Rhea Ripley's nose before. She comes in very confident with the bat. Bodies start going everywhere. This is where the match finally becomes official, and all hell is broken loose. Everybody is bodies flying. There's different weapons involved. There's a spot where a fire extinguisher is brought in, and it's used to prevent Tiffany Stratton. This was the most interesting part of the match to me because, as you know, Tiffany Stratton, like I mentioned before, is the Money in the Bank winner. But in this type of situation, I don't know if she'd be able to cash it in. And you see Michael Cole on commentary talking about that. And it's teased, but then we see Io Shirai use the fire extinguisher interface, break it up. While she does that, Rhea Ripley chains Raquel Rodriguez with some handcuffs that were brought in a little bit earlier to one of the ropes. She's basically isolated. Nothing that she can do, non-factor in the match. We see all hell keep breaking loose. And then there's a point in the match where everybody's out. We see Rhea Ripley take off of her mask, reveal that she can have her face is fine. They go at it some more. We see Rhea Ripley deliver a riptide through the table on Liv Morgan's from on top of the turnbuckle for the win. 1, 2, 3. Rhea Ripley's team takes the W. Her team wins. I got one of the predictions right in my prediction video. If you check it out, 1 W in the column for me. Before I get into the next match, I want to take a second to pay some bills. If you are in the Fayetteville, North Carolina, Spring Lake area, Mommy's Daycare is the best daycare that is in the area. They are a 4-star facility. They have been in business for almost 20 years. They teach a bilingual program. Everybody at the center speaks Spanish. They have been in business, like I said, for 20 years. They have had stellar reviews. Just check their Googles. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. They have this actual drop-in program, which has been very productive at the moment. None like it in the area. Like I said before, if you are in the Fayetteville, North Carolina area, contact Mommy's Daycare and they will get you situated right. Now, we are going to go into match 2. And match 2 was LA Knight versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the U.S. Championship. I'm looking at my notes right now. And before I even get into the match, the first thing in my notes I put is, this is a match that should be on SmackDown. The way WWE books Nakamura is so funny. If you've seen it within the last probably 2 to 3 years, what they do is once they have a champion and they need to hold him over for another big feud or they run out of bodies to put in front of this champion, it's like break in case of emergency, they hit up Shinsuke Nakamura and get him off the beach because, as you guys know, he is a well-known surfer. That's what he is in doing. And they bring him in to take the pinfall. I was sadly mistaken. I hope any of you guys didn't go to DraftKings and put your money on LA Knight because LA Knight surprisingly took the L in this match. Now, it kind of puts LA Knight in a funny particular position because if you're looking at the WrestleMania card, all the big names are pretty much going to be taken. Whether it's Roman Reigns being linked up with The Rock or Cody Rhodes 3, or even having a singles match with Jacob Fatu, he's taken. CM Punk, I'm imagining that he is earmarked for a match with Seth Rollins. Cody Rhodes, like I said, will either be involved in a match with The Rock or Roman Reigns, maybe even Randy Orton, so he's booked up. So it really leaves LA Knight in a funny position because he's already had his match with Logan Paul. He's had a brief little feud with Cody Rhodes. He's had, not Cody Rhodes, with Randy Orton. So the only really options I could see possibly for LA Knight, and even then this is kind of a stretch because they were involved in the same type of triangle with Randy Orton, would be Kevin Owens. So I don't know where this leads LA Knight. I don't know what they're going to do with the U.S. Championship now that Nakamura is there. Now Nakamura is going to have to be on the show on a regular basis. It's just weird how they transition from Logan Paul, who's a guy who is never really there on the show, to LA Knight, who's there on a weekly basis, to Nakamura, who's a guy we only see on a semi-regular basis. It's just really strange the way they've been booking that title. But it's good to see Nakamura back on TV. He came into the match, and he had another remix version of his theme song. If you saw on SmackDown on Friday, he did a remix version of his original theme song that I thought was great. I don't know why they retinkered with it. Then they retinkered with the retinkered version, and now he came into the ring and he had traditional samurai gear. Now, like I said, this was a SmackDown quality match. It was probably the worst match on the card, and I'm not saying that because these two guys just had a trash match, but there were just more important things to happen. And if there wasn't a title change at the end, I feel like nobody would be talking about this match, period. That just should let you know and give you a hint, just the quality of this match. We're going to move on from it because, like I said, outside of the title change, I didn't think it was that important, and it wasn't really that great. Outside of a spot where you saw LA Knight get back suplexed on the in-between area between the two rings of the War Games match. Next, we're going to go to the triple threat for the Intercontinental Championship. We have Braun Breaker, Ludwig Kaiser, and Sheamus. Now, as we all know, for years, Sheamus has opined about the fact that the one title that he wants to win in the WWE is the Intercontinental Championship. That is the one title that escapes him of becoming a Grand Slam champion. And throughout this whole match, you could tell that the crowd, that was something that they wanted to see. They wanted to see Sheamus get the strap. And out of these three guys, Sheamus was the old man, the grizzled vet. It's kind of crazy to say that, man, because I remember, it feels like just yesterday, Sheamus made his debut in winning the WWE Championship. But no, Sheamus is one of the old heads now. And you saw Braun Breaker remind him that he's one of the old heads at one point in this match. Give me a second. All this talking gets me thirsty. This was a match that really showed off Braun Breaker's athletic ability. As we all know, the guy is an athletic freak, and it feels like every single match that he has on a weekly basis, he tries his best to remind us just how much of an athletic freak that he is. And what I liked about this match a lot was they were harping on commentary about the fact that Gunther and Kaiser had this confrontation where Gunther said, "Go take it. You've been in my shadow for so long. You're a great performer. Now it's your time to show what you're worth for Imperium." And Ludwig Kaiser, his trajectory is very similar to Kyle Fletcher's in AEW. They're kind of in very similar situations to me. Whereas, like, these are two guys who were known as tag team wrestlers, tag team specialists. And with Fletcher, his partner, getting hurt, and Ludwig, his partner, basically being thrown to the wolves, they have had to show off the fact and really spread their rings and become singles wrestlers. And they both, to various degrees, have had success. I believe Fletcher has had a little bit more success, but that's not here, not there. This was a great match, in my opinion. Not the best match of the card, but it was a very entertaining one. Ludwig had spots in this match where he came across as if he's the guy who's next up. Sheamus showed off why he is a guy who will be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And Braun Breaker showed off how he is such an athletic freak. There was a spot in this match that was very reminiscent to the Undertaker and AJ Styles meme from the Boneyard match, where you see the Undertaker behind AJ Styles making that face. And Sheamus is outside of the barricade. And Ludwig is kind of catching his breath on the outside because they brawl on the outside. And you see Sheamus deliver his famous chest punches. And you see after he's done delivering those to Kaiser, you see him deliver the same thing to Braun Breaker. And at this point, the crowd is kind of in a fever pitch because they want to see Sheamus win the Intercontinental Championship. But at the end of the day, Braun Breaker secures a W by hitting a spear to Sheamus. 1, 2, 3, retain the Intercontinental Championship. Another right prediction for me on the show. That's another W in the Kevin column. Next, we are going into Damian Priest versus Gunther for the World Championship. Now, this was, in my opinion, one of the least important matches on the show. And it's kind of hard to say that because it's only a 5-match card, right? But this is a match that we saw at SummerSlam. We kind of knew going into this match that Gunther wasn't going to lose. Damian Priest was the individual who Gunther took the title from, and just from a logical booking sense, it doesn't make sense to take the title from the guy and then less than 4 or 5 months later lose the title to the exact same guy. This whole match was centered around Damian Priest suffering a shoulder injury. You saw multiple spots where Gunther is working Damian Priest's shoulder. He's taking his shoulder, running it into the ring post, taking his shoulder, running it into the barricades. He's doing all these different submission holds to work on his shoulder, cause a pain. And you see Damian Priest trying to basically wrestle a match with one arm behind his back because anytime he's ever gaining momentum, it's just his shoulder debilitating him. You see different points in the match where Damian Priest is setting Gunther up for a razor's edge, but isn't able to connect it because it's just his shoulder gives out. And then at a pivotal point of the match, you see Damian be able to hit that razor's edge on Gunther, but Gunther is the ring general. That wasn't enough for him. And then there's a point in the match where they're outside. Damian Priest is tired. He's kind of like crawling on the outside. And you see Finn Balor out of nowhere jump, give him kind of a curb stomp maneuver. You see Gunther get mad because that's not how he wants to win. Gunther is one of the rare heels that in wrestling, and it's extremely rare these days, where he's only a heel because he's a mean guy. He's not similar to the other heels where they'll take the chicken shit way out. They'll cut corners. They'll cheat their way to win. He wants to win cleanly. He just wants to be the better man. He's just not a nice guy. So he gets mad at Finn Balor for doing that. But at the end of the day, he puts Damian Priest in a sleeper hold. Priest passes out. Gunther retains the championship. Now, Gunther has a very interesting road to WrestleMania in my mind. If you check the betting odds right now for the Royal Rumble, John Cena is the betting favorite to win it. And Gunther is a guy who I think, win, lose, or draw, having a WrestleMania match with John Cena, a title WrestleMania match with John Cena, is a big look for him. And I do believe that John Cena will be the guy to go against Gunther at WrestleMania for the heavyweight championship. And I do believe that John Cena is going to win because I think in WWE's mind, it's a big deal to have John Cena win number 17. And you could just, it doesn't have to be this long, year-long reign. It could be as simple as a few weeks and Gunther wins it back. I think there's no harm, no foul. I think that, like I said, Gunther just being in the ring with John Cena is a W in itself. And I think that that is the earmarked position for Gunther and John Cena on the road to WrestleMania. Before I get into the main event, I want to take some time to give a shout out to my boy AJ Schreiber. If you guys don't know who AJ Schreiber is the F1 analyst and expert on the Robin Lundberg Show, a guy who I've done multiple collaborations with, whether it's wrestling related, hip hop related. Me and Robin have done a few things. AJ took the time to go to AEW Dynamite's double taping of Collision this week in Chicago. And he printed out over 250 business cards with my logo on it, went to the show with a custom-made t-shirt with the channel's logo on it. This wasn't something that I asked for. This is something the guy did on his own just because he's a good friend and supports the channel. And I want to give a shout out to my boy AJ for doing that, because that was one of the nicest gestures anybody has ever done for me, especially in this business where people don't want to help you out in this business, to be honest with you. It's a very dog-eat-dog world. So shout out to AJ for that. Next, we are getting into the main event, which is the men's War Games. Now, this was a match that had, like I said before, very high stakes. This was basically for the right to who is the tribal chief. And you had a little gasoline thrown on the fire now with this Paul Heyman, CM Punk, Roman Reigns kind of triangle of Paul Heyman owes CM Punk a favor. Roman Reigns doesn't know what the favor is. CM Punk and Paul Heyman haven't publicly stated what the favor is. So there's a lot of drama now between the three. And like I said in previous videos before, I do believe that Roman Reigns versus CM Punk is the biggest non-Rock related match WWE can do. I don't know if it's the right stage for WrestleMania because, like I said previously, I think CM Punk and Seth Rollins are earmarked for WrestleMania. But why not do it at SummerSlam at MetLife in New Jersey? It is now 2 nights. And with a show like that being 2 nights now, they're going to want it to be basically the summer version of WrestleMania. So what is a better stage to do that match than that stage right there? Now, this match starts off with Tonga Loa, and Jey Uso. I don't know why the guy does that, but it's funny though. Yeah. So they start off the match, and Jey Uso's really getting worked. He's getting a case of the beats from Tama Tonga. And then you see coming into the match, big Bronson Reed, which you knew as soon as Bronson Reed and Tama Tonga were in there, you knew Jey Uso was destined for a case of the beats. And that's exactly what he got. During this whole match, there was 2 things that popped into my head the whole match throughout. It was a scene at the end of 300 where Leonidas knows that he's outmanned by the Persians, and that humpback guy, I forgot the dude's name, sold him out to the Persians, and he knew that he was done. And he walks into the battle and gets sprayed with all the bow and arrows and just dies like a man. There was a sequence in the match, and I'm kind of skipping ahead, but I'm going to go back, where Roman Reigns is walking into the cage, and it felt like that. And then there was another analogy that popped into my head. Is I don't know if you guys know anything about football or any sports team really. There's teams. Main example right now is my New York Jets, where they have a very talented roster, but they're a talented roster of individuals and not a team. And for 90% of this match, that was what the OG Bloodline team was. A bunch of talented individuals, the biggest stars on the roster outside of Cody Rhodes. And for the most part, they were catching cases of the beats. Now, when Jimmy Uso is outnumbered by Tama Tonga and Bronson Reed, his brother Big Jim comes in, and you see glimpses of the old Usos, man. You see them hitting signature moves that they used to do. They used to do their version of the super kick party that the Bucks do. You see them delivering different high rope maneuvers. It made you in your feels, man. It was very 2014, 2015 vibes that we got from the Usos. And it kind of evened the playing field for a little bit, but Bronson Reed was just too big and things weren't in their favor. Now, things got interesting where they had the next entry. And the next entry who was going to come into the ring was the OG Bloodline team. And you see CM Punk trying to bust out of the cage like he's the guy. And you see Roman Reigns hold him back. You see him send Sami Zayn. And you see the tension between the two guys already start there. And it's kind of weird because if you think about it, they have to spend the next like several minutes in the cage together. So I don't know how, just common sense wise, if there's already problems brewing, I don't know why there wasn't an issue in the cage. But nonetheless, you see Sami Zayn come in, and Sami Zayn gets the big pop because, as we all know, the show was in Canada. Sami Zayn is Canadian, so of course he was going to get love, and he came into the match as a ball of fire. But at this point, with Bronson Reed in there, it just is too much of a man, you know? He was having his way with a lot of the guys. And if I had to pick an MVP for this match, I would go with Jacob Fatu, right? Jacob Fatu was the man. Next, we are going to go with Tonga Loa, was supposed to be the next person in. But Solo Sikoa weighs him off, says, nah, not you. And then he brings in the Samoan Werewolf. Now, the Samoan Werewolf, Jacob Fatu, like I said, was the MVP of this match. He is a guy who has been in 3 main events of PLEs this whole year and hasn't even spent a whole calendar year in the WWE. That's impressive any way that you slice it. He's a guy who you can tell is earmarked for a big-time match at WrestleMania or a championship in his future. I brought this up before, but I feel like at this point, a match with him and Roman Reigns is WrestleMania quality if they choose to go the direction of Cody Rhodes and The Rock, and Roman Reigns isn't the guy who goes one-on-one with The Rock at WrestleMania. A match with Jacob Fatu would be perfectly fine in my books. And I think I just got that mixed up a little bit, right? Now, we see Roman Reigns enter the ring. No, we see Solo Sikoa enter the ring. And Solo Sikoa is calling the shots. He's basically, as soon as he walked into the ring, everybody was getting theirs. Everybody was getting a case of the beats. He's slamming the door in people's faces. He goes into the cage, and he's calling shots like a mob boss. You do this to this person. You do that to this person. Everybody's getting a case of the beats. He locks the door because he puts this cage, this kind of chain on the door. And the next person who comes in is obviously Roman Reigns, the tribal chief. He can't get into the match because the door is locked. We see him try to go around the cage, shake his way in, realize he can't go in. And the only way that he can get in is climbing into the cage. He climbs into the cage, but as soon as he tries to get into the cage, all the bad guys, all the new bloodline guys are surrounding him. They're trying to get him to where he can't get into the cage. But eventually, he overpowers them, and he hits them with the crossbody. And now the match officially begins. And this is the part of the match where things start to become, like I said, the version of 300. Because all of these guys in this match on the OG Bloodline team, outside of the Usos, have never really worked together. And so, of course, CM Punk has never worked together. So they are just not a single unit like the new Bloodline is. They're having their way with everybody. But then there comes a point where the momentum shifts, where Jacob Fatu is going to go for a moonsault on CM Punk. He doesn't hit the moonsault. He looks like he falls kind of nastily on his knee. That is the opening for the OG Bloodline team that they needed. They tease a spot where Bronson Reed climbs on top of the cage, right? And he's going to deliver the tsunami to Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is laid down on the table, motionless, and as soon as he comes flying down to the air, CM Punk moves Roman Reigns out of the table, and Big Bronson Reed lands right there in the table. And you see Roman Reigns acknowledge the fact that he saw CM Punk do that. And they look like they're about to have a mutual shaking of hands, mutual respects. But Solo Sikoa gives him a spike. We get a near fall, thinking that we were going to see Roman Reigns take an L, a repeat of what we saw at Crown Jewel, getting pinned by Solo Sikoa, but not so fast. Then we get to the point of the match where it was Solo Sikoa's one-man stand. All the members of his bloodline were out. All the bodies were on the ground. Nobody was there to help him. You see him surrounded by the OG bloodline. He looks at him and says, I'm still the damn tribal chief. Then every single one of those guys hit their finisher on Solo Sikoa. Roman Reigns gets the pin, 1, 2, 3. The tribal chief and the OG bloodline take a W. Now, one of the more interesting images from this PLE was you see all the OG Bloodline guys celebrating, and you see them hugging and shaking hands and all that, but you see Roman Reigns off in the distance, not being included in that. He is just an outsider looking in. And then you see the OG Bloodline guys surround him, and they look at Roman Reigns and tell him, we won this match, and we won this match because we got help from CM Punk. You see CM Punk and Roman Reigns shake hands. They do their poses. CM Punk does his pose, and they're walking out of the ring, and Paul Heyman is right there. And Paul Heyman embraces CM Punk first, and they hug each other, and you see CM Punk tell Paul Heyman, he's like, hey, you still owe me that favor. We owe each other. And he is like, and when I ask for that favor, I'm going to need it, man. And then you see Roman Reigns acknowledge Paul Heyman, give him a tap on the face. You see them climb up to the ramp, and the lasting image of this PLE is them doing their one poses again, and CM Punk doing his pose again, and that was the end of the show. Now, where this leaves the OG Bloodline and CM Punk is kind of fuzzy, because you heard on commentary Michael Cole reiterating that, hey, Solo Sikoa still has the Ulafalu. You know, technically he still is the tribal chief, even though I thought this Mo match was the purpose of the title of the tribal chief. But that leads us to possibly going to the Elimination Chamber match in Toronto, where they could be fighting for the right of the Ulufalu to be the tribal chief. There's many different directions they can go. We're getting closer and closer to WrestleMania season, and the picture is going to become more clearer and clearer of where directions that we're going to go with these guys. There's multiple different directions. They could, as far as I know, they could have CM Punk win the Royal Rumble and go against Roman Reigns somehow. Like I said, I believe that John Cena is going to win that match, but who knows? There's multiple different ways to get to there, like the Elimination Chamber, multiple avenues to get to the WrestleMania main event. So there's multiple pathways. How does Seth Rollins factor in this? I think that he does, because Bronson Reed was involved in this match, who he's previously had a problem with, and CM Punk is involved in this match where he has notably had a problem in it. And where does this leave The Rock? I was thinking, man, that when they were dragging on so long, doing the poses and stuff like that, I thought that there was a chance that we were going to get a Rock appearance, similar to how we got the CM Punk appearance last year at War Games, but we didn't. But I'm sure that he is going to be at the first episode of Monday Night Raw once they hit the Netflix, and that's where we're finally going to see the direction of where he's heading to WrestleMania. But it's exciting times, man. This was a fun pay-per-view, well, PLE in my opinion. Not the best of the year, obviously, but very entertaining show. If I had to give it the Meltzer star rating, I will be giving it 4 stars. Be on the lookout. I have some new material that will be dropping immediately after this, so make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed and you checked in, make sure to subscribe. I am Kevin Zwicker. I'm out.